Hi everyone, this is Rabbi Kerry Chaplin from Shul. Welcome to Resist Burnout, a 15-minute weekly call to restore and regenerate and return to who you are with some grounding for your righteous work this week. Whatever your background or practice is, this is a comfortable space for you. Whether you're calling in every week now, this is your first time calling, or if you're listening later in the week, I know that you know the need for this sort of grounding, this sort of refreshment, this regeneration. Otherwise, you wouldn't be calling in or listening at all. The Shul team and I hope this call will be one of many way stations in your life amidst the outrage, the hard work, sometimes the joys, the determination, sometimes what feels like chaos in our cultures that are right now so plagued with the diseases of racism and Islamophobia, even a lack of caring and empathy, and a concern for the very integrity of democracy. Whatever your personal rituals or practices or religions, we hope that Resist Burnout is one of these many way stations for you. This week, Rhonda Rosen will be guiding us in meditation, and LaTanya Lane will be joining us. Very excited about that, to offer us some words of inspiration. Everyone is on mute because of the brief nature of the call, and that means no introductions. But I do want to honor this temporary community of like-minded strangers throughout the country. So please, when the call is over, I invite you to post a picture of where you're listening or who you're listening with, coworkers, cute animals, your sunny corner of the office, as Julia Smith once told me. Or you could post a word or two about what's on your mind or heart after the call. In the meantime, I will say something about who I notice is on today's call. At least the area codes I recognize. There are folks from Illinois and California, Pennsylvania, Vermont, New York, I think DC, and at least a few others, but I'm honestly not totally sure where those places are. St. Louis, shout out to St. Louis. I'm sure other places too. And there are people on this call I know who are working for workers' rights, for immigrant rights, for healthcare access, for queer rights, for refugees, for interfaith education and leadership, academics, artists, peacemakers, troublemakers, politicos, people who are planning to run for office, consultants, parents, and all of us pursuing the world that we aspire to live in. We gather on this call to practice our own helpfulness. We have just this one self and a whole lot of work to do with it. Calling from outside of Pittsburgh, Rhonda Rosen has been a mindfulness meditation practitioner since '73 and leading mindfulness meditation for 10 years, and she's just off a retreat this weekend to be with us. Welcome back, Rhonda.
Thanks, Kerry. Are we ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, good. If you are working to establish a relaxation or a meditation practice in order to resist burnout, you may notice that your mind is usually pretty busy. This is normal. You can't make it stop. Relax and let it play itself out while the body figures out how to let go of dysfunctional tension. Sometimes the chattering mind just needs to review and organize the day. You can also become aware that your mind is expert at helping you avoid feeling uncomfortable. We can't end up perseverating to protect ourselves from physical or emotional discomfort. This leads to being preoccupied in pretty predictable ways. It prevents us from being responsive, and it's exhausting. The Buddhists have been studying the way mind operates for a very long time. They teach us there are 5 basic ways of predictably arriving at mental and emotional dead ends. When you find yourself lost in one of these mental dead ends, congratulate yourself for noticing and use that awareness as a sign to come back to your senses. What do I see, hear, taste, smell, and feel? Am I breathing? I'm going to give you this list of 5 hindrances because I think they're really useful. And I'm going to give these in borrowed metaphors just because they're so vivid and make it easier to remember them. Say which are your favorite internal mindsets which function desiring any kind of sensory stimulation. Enough of this flat, parched, empty, boring desert. Or maybe you're somewhere in the fog. No idea if you're by the coast or in a valley or in a mountaintop of clouds. You could be anywhere, mentally fogged in. Do any of these sound familiar? Which is your favorite place to get stuck? And what is the effect of getting stuck? Is it helpful? And it's all so human. They all accomplish nothing and prevent us from being either productive or relaxed. And how can we meet our needs if we're avoiding feeling and knowing what they are? So let's practice coming to our senses. So this skill becomes part of your toolkit for living in trying times. So if you want, make yourself comfortable enough and start by taking a nice big inhale and then fully exhale. When you breathe with the diaphragm, the lower third of the lungs also fill up. And this is where the most efficient oxygen exchange happens, so it's important. When you breathe this way, you may feel the rib cage expand and contract. So take one more deliberate inhale and exhale, and then just let the breath breathe naturally. You can let the attention rest on the breath at the nostrils or the movement of the diaphragm and the rib cage. And each time the attention wanders, just bring it back. This breath, in this moment, breathing all by itself with just enough energy in your attention that it rests so gently on the continuous movement of the breathing. Attending to the breath as if it were the most interesting thing. There's nothing to control. And each time the attention wanders, come back home to this breath. It's so good to take time outside of time. And all of the external and internal noise is the background, and this breath is the foreground. It doesn't matter how much noise your mind is making, because here's the breath. The inhale and the exhale, and the transition in between. And if you ever have trouble focusing the attention, you can count the breath from 1 to 4 and back again. Just labeling the exhale with a number. The breath can be a place of stability, comfort, and ease. No demands. Without judgment, this breath in this moment just breathing itself. And you can feel the weight of the body just sitting here, alive, resting from head to toe. Gravity does all the work to keep the body just here, supported. You might want to feel the connection between your feet and the floor. Stable. Then return to the breath, which is still breathing all by itself. And each time you practice, the attention becomes more capable, more facile each time you practice. So it's good to know you can make this part of your daily life. And when you notice you're getting worn out or preoccupied, you can invite yourself to breathe and rest just like this. Very good. Thank you, Kerry. Kerry? For some reason, Kerry, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me, Rhonda?
Now I can. Good.
Oh, okay. Good.
Okay. I thought maybe you had left somewhere.
I was longing into a beautiful thank you.
Okay. Oh, good. All right.
I'm gonna try it again.
Okay.
Helping us to expand our toolkit for living in these trying times and sometimes violent times, especially by today helping us to notice our mental and emotional dead ends, especially through metaphor, and for returning us to our breath today. Thank you for, again, doing that. LaTanya Lane is joining us today as our inspiration specialist. She's calling from Chicago, and while we don't know each other that well, I do know she is a storyteller and interfaith leader, and she in particular works with youth in interfaith leadership. I'm looking forward to learning from her wisdom today. Thank you, LaTanya, for sharing your story with us and your leadership with us.
Thank you, Kerry. So I just wanted to share an experience that I had a couple of years ago. I have been working in social justice-oriented nonprofits for the better part of the last 15 years. And yeah, I think it's important to take those moments to find inspiration and to recharge and to recommit oneself to the work. And also, I think that can be difficult, which is where I found myself a couple of years ago. So in the same way that, when the Lemonade album dropped, we all stopped, or at least in my world, many folks stopped and made time to listen to that. At the organization I work with now, we had a learning course, an online learning course that people had been working on for quite some time. And when it was finished, we kind of stopped in the office and kind of celebrated this moment and had it playing for 4 hours, 2 days in a row. So people had an opportunity to see this whole course. So that's kind of where I was a couple of summers ago, watching this video in the office, trying to get some work done, and also trying to process another summer where state-sponsored bullets kept ripping through Black bodies. Very difficult time. I think with the what is surprisingly many years ago with the Trayvon Martin case and the George Zimmerman acquittal, I never fully recovered from that moment, and it just felt like this ongoing, relentless cycle from that moment to this time a couple summers ago. It still feels that way even today. During that, I felt very much unequal to the levels of my despair and grief. It felt impossible to continue in a world that seemed to value myself and my community. But still, I had to work and I had to put food on the table and I had to do things. And this blended learning course was happening in our office. So I walked back and forth. And I happened to stop to watch the video for a few minutes as I was eating my lunch. And there was a section where people were sharing their theologies and ethics of interfaith cooperation. And one person, Tahil Sharma, who is an activist on the West Coast, shared this, which I'm about to share with you. Tahil identifies as Sikh and identifies as Hindu. From Sikhism, I have Chardi Kala, which is relentless optimism, and Sarbat Divala, which means the welfare of all creation. And it's this idea that regardless of what we go through in our lives, we are to accept it as good. Jahub Kino Sopalmanyo is what we would say. And in that process, we begin to see that life is not always positive. Life is not always fruitful. But at the same time, if we continue to see that things will get better, that there is light at the end of the path, then we'll continue to go down a path of righteousness. So there I was in the middle of my office, having a moment that had grown brittle and find an opportunity to feel renewed and regenerated. I had never heard the words relentless optimism put together in that way before, and I felt really challenged and by the idea, especially in a space where I felt like those weren't the stories that I was being told, that that I was seeing anti-Black racism as this big and difficult thing. And here was someone inviting me to think of it as, yes, a big and difficult and challenging thing, and also not the only thing. And so I wanted to share this story with you today because I think that was a moment that I'm really grateful for. I'm grateful for Tahil sharing about his tradition and what inspires him, because it found me in a moment where I was really lacking in inspiration. And also helped me remember that sometimes when hope is not accessible to me in the universe I'm in, that there are opportunities to sometimes borrow hope from others, right? And I know there are many important conversations about appropriation versus appreciation. And I think there are ways that we can, in an appreciative way, look to folks outside of our particular communities to bolster us in those difficult times. And so that's the story I wanted to share. That's a moment of inspiration I've learned recently, and I hope there's something in that to inspire you all.
Thank you, LaTanya, for sharing that really deep wisdom with us. I think many of us who've been, maybe for different reasons, but many of us who've been involved with activism and justice work have felt that brittleness on the kind of eating us up and not sure how to move forward. And it's a beautiful idea to appreciate. As you said, in your own universe, earlier. Invite everyone to go on in the Facebook group and post a picture of who you are, who you're with, where you are, or a few words reflecting on your experience during today's call. Thanks to everyone for being here, and I look forward to, actually won't be with you next week, but other folks will be. And I'm looking forward to listening to the recording. Thanks so much, everybody.